Hello guys, today we'll be learning about the topic inflation. So what is inflation? What is inflation? In simple terms, inflation is increase in the price level of goods and services. Inflation is nothing but increase in prices of goods and services. इसका मतलब क्या है? फॉर एग्जांपल 2024 में एक बर्गर की प्राइस 50 रुपीज़ है एंड सेम बर्गर की प्राइस 150 हो जाती है 2025 में, देन दिस इम्प्लाइज कि बर्गर की प्राइस इंक्रीज हो गई है विच इज़ नथिंग बट इन्फ्लेशन. तो इन सिंपल टर्म्स वी कैन से दैट व्हेन prices of goods and services increase over a period of time, it is called inflation. I repeat, when prices of goods and services increase over a period of time, it is known as inflation. Inflation is basically classified into two types: inflation based on rates, inflation based on causes. In today's video, we'll be looking at inflation which is based on rates. Let's get started. Inflation based on rates, it's classified into four types: creeping inflation, walking inflation, running inflation and galloping inflation. अब इन सब टर्म्स को हम एक एक करके देखते हैं. When the rate of inflation gradually increases up to 4% annually, it is known as creeping inflation. This inflation is positive for the economy as it stimulates demand and investment. This creeping inflation is positive for economy. Now we'll look into walking inflation. When there is a gradual increase in the price range around 4% to 10%, this is known as walking inflation or trotting inflation. This is also considered positive for Indian economy. The third type is running inflation. When the rate of inflation increases in the range of 10% to 20% annually, उसको बोलते हैं running inflation. If this inflation is remained unchecked, it can lead to economic overheating. If this inflation is remained unchecked, it can lead to economic overheating. अब economic overheating होता क्या है? When economy is growing at faster rate, it increases the inflation. When economy is growing at faster rate, it leads to inflation, and this causes the demand and supply gap mismatch, where supply is less and demand is more. इसको बोलते हैं economic overheating. So economic overheating is a situation where economy is growing at faster rate, increasing in the inflation, where demand is more and the supply is less. We'll revisit the concept again. When the rate of inflation increases in the range of 10% to 20% annually, it is known as running inflation. अगर ये अनचेक्ड रहता है तो ये इकोनॉमिक ओवरहीटिंग की सिचुएशन को राइज करेगा. Now, the last type is galloping inflation. When inflation rises rapidly at double or triple rates annually, it is known as galloping inflation. इस इन्फ्लेशन की रेंज रहती है 20% to 50%. अगर ये इन्फ्लेशन हम अनचेक रह जाता है तो इट अफेक्ट्स द परचेसिंग पावर ऑफ कंज्यूमर, because the inflation will be so high that consumers won't be able to purchase the goods and services. That's why this inflation is danger for Indian economy. Galloping inflation is danger for Indian economy. So out of creeping, walking, running and galloping inflation, creeping is positive and galloping is danger for Indian economy. अब हम इस creeping, walking and running inflation को ग्राफ में अगर प्लॉट करते हैं तो ये कुछ इस फॉर्मेट में दिख जाएगा, वेयर वाई एक्सिस रिप्रेजेंट्स परसेंटेज in the increase of inflation and x-axis is number of years. जो 4% है that is known as creeping inflation. Next is walking inflation. Next is running inflation. And at last we have galloping inflation. अब तक हमने देखा है what is meant by inflation and types of inflation. In that we have seen inflation is divided into two types. One is based on rates and one is based on causes. In inflation based on rates, we have seen creeping inflation, walking inflation, running inflation, and galloping inflation. Today, we'll be looking into details of inflation based on causes. So, let's get started. सबसे पहले आता है डिमांड पुल इन्फ्लेशन. नाउ व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय डिमांड पुल इन्फ्लेशन? लेट अस ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड विद एन एग्जांपल. सपोज आप बर्गर किंग में गए हो and there you find only 2 burgers are left and there are total 6 people along with you. Now the question arises कि out of 6 peoples बर्गर मिलेगा किसको? तो ये जो सिचुएशन अराइज हो गई है उसको बोलते हैं द डिमांड इज मोर देन द सप्लाई. तो ऑब्वियसली जिसके पास ज़्यादा पैसे होंगे बर्गर उसी को मिलेगा. तो इसको कहते हैं डिमांड पुल इन्फ्लेशन. Like in simple words, when the demand of goods has increased and the supply is less, it is known as demand pull inflation. अगर हम इसको आसान भाषा में समझना चाहें तो इट इज़ टू मच मनी chasing too much goods, chasing too few goods. Demand pull inflation is nothing but too much money chasing too few goods. आई होप आपको ये बर्गर की एग्जाम्पल से समझ में आया हो. Now, the next type is cost push inflation. Let us understand with the same example of burger. Now, suppose burger बनाने में we have been using टिक्की, cheese, lettuce and buns. अगर इन input cost की price बढ़ जाती है then the final price of burger will also rise. For example, पहले बर्गर की प्राइस 440 रुपीज़ है. नाउ ड्यू टू द rise in price of input it has gone up to 485. That means due to the increase in the cost of inputs the final price of burger has risen. This is known as cost push inflation. This is known as cost push inflation. So in theoretical terms, when price increases due to increase in price increases due to increase in the cost of inputs, it is known as cost push inflation. Now, the third type is known as built-in inflation. The third type is built-in inflation. अब built-in inflation है क्या? We'll try to understand with the same example of burger. Now, let us look when the price of inputs rises, the final price of burger rises, which in turn leads to inflation. That is nothing but rise in the price level of goods and services. Now, when overall prices of goods and services are rising, जो workers हैं who are working in Burger King, they will also demand increase in their salary. So this is nothing but built-in inflation. इससे क्या हो रहा है, एक circular economy जैसा situation arise होगा where price of inputs are rising, price of final goods is rising, which is leading to inflation, and therefore the wages of workers are also rising. This will again lead to the situation of demand pull, cost push, and built-in inflation, and this cycles continues.
We'll be looking into headline inflation and core inflation. Before getting started, we'll just have a quick recap on what we have covered so far. We have completed inflation, types of inflation in which we have seen creeping, walking, and galloping inflation. We have also seen what is demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. Now, let us recall what demand pull inflation is. Demand pull inflation is nothing but a situation where demand is more than the supply. Having said this, now let us move on towards today's video on headline inflation and core inflation. इसको हम समझेंगे with some example. Let us consider that there are two baskets in which various items are included. Out of that, the most volatile are food and fuel. अगर हम इन दो चीज का कंपैरिजन करें जो वोलाटाइल है बिकॉज इसकी प्राइसेस चेंज रहती है इनमें फ्लक्चुएशन आते हैं ड्यू टू वॉर ड्यू टू सप्लाई मिसमैच तो अगर हम इन दोनों का पैरामीटर करेंगे विल बी गेटिंग टू इन्फ्लेशंस वन इज हेडलाइन द नेक्स्ट इज कोर नाउ लेट अस लुक व्हाट कोर इन्फ्लेशन इज अगर हम इन बास्केट्स को कंपेयर करें एंड इनमें से जो फूड और फ्यूल का पैरामीटर है वो अगर एक्सक्लूड करते हैं तो जो इंडेक्स मिलेगी वो उसको कहते हैं कोर इन्फ्लेशन आई रिपीट out of the basket when we exclude the fuel and food index which are volatile we get core inflation and headline inflation is nothing but it includes food and fuel inflation food and fuel components in it as well अब बढ़ते हैं नीम्स की तरह हेडलाइन इन्फ्लेशन जो न्यूज में आता है which we see in television headlines and newspaper headlines it is known as headline inflation. It is used by central banks for long-term policy decision because it includes food and fuel, which are volatile. And coming towards core inflation, it is nothing but a, a stable type of index because it does not include food and energy in it. Now, let us have a look on a question from PYQ. Core inflation is different from headline inflation because comment down your answer below.
Series. So far, we have seen what is inflation, types of inflation, demand pull and cost push inflation, headline versus core inflation. Now, comment down the difference between headline and core inflation. Moving ahead, let us see what Phillips curve is. Sir A. W. Phillips gave relationship between inflation and unemployment. According to him, there is an inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment. In simple terms, as inflation rises, the rate of unemployment decreases. This is nothing but Phillips curve. Now, let us look at the graphical representation of Phillips curve. Here, we can see that as inflation is rising, the rate of unemployment decreases. In simple terms, when there is high inflation, there will be high demand of goods. As there is high demand, people will spend more money. If people are spending more money, they will demand rises in wages. The company cannot increase wages for all. Hence, they will start firing the people. This is nothing but layoff. We have seen that companies are laying off the people from their uh, contracts because of high demands in wages. This causes the rate of unemployment to increase again. Now, let us see this phenomena in terms of graph. Phillips curve is nothing but the rate of inflation. With the rate of inflation, unemployment rate decreases. But there will be certain situation where inflation is constant, inflation is on rise, and the rate of unemployment does not decrease after a certain point. This is known as non-accelerating rate of unemployment. In short, NAIRU. NAIRU is nothing but a situation where the inflation is rising, but the unemployment won't be decreasing after a certain point. NAIRU is also known as natural rate natural rate of unemployment. NAIRU and natural rate of unemployment are one and the same. This phenomena is also known as stagflation, where inflation is rising but unemployment is fixed at a certain point. Let us understand this with an example of burger. Phillips curve says that when inflation rises, the rate of unemployment is decreasing. When people have more jobs, they can spend more money on burger, hence number of employees in the burger outlet will increase, and which will lead to decrease in the unemployment. But after a certain point, the price of burger will keep rising, but the unemployment will also rise because the workers will demand more rise in the wages, and company cannot afford to give increase to all increase of wages to all. Stay tuned for more such videos. Thank you so much.